Again, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome for joining this IES INCA Technopreneurship Network online interactive webinar. Today, we have our two speakers to share with us about the best in HR practices that you can adopt for your company, and also to see how you can retain and also reward your staff so they can build a stronger company. So let me just start off by doing an introduction about IES INCA for those who are new to us. Yeah, okay. Just do my slide here. Okay. Okay, so today we'll be sharing about best-in-class HR practices for technology ventures. I'll be doing introduction, and then I will pass on to Mr. Leong Siu Wai, who will talk about how you can reward and retain talent in the tech ventures that you're running. And after that, we'll pass on to Ms. Karen Le, who will talk about holistic HR planning for engineering and technology companies. After that, we will have a panel discussion, and you can ask your questions and share about your HR challenges, and we will try to address it as a panel. And we'll have some Q&A and also some networking time. Okay, so for those who are new to us, IES INCA actually stands for Institution of Engineers Singapore Incubator Accelerator. IES is actually a national body for engineers, has been around since 1966. We have lots of members in different disciplines for engineering and also from the government, private sector, and academia. Mission is really to promote the science, art, and professional engineering so that we can, for the well-being of mankind, and also be heart and voice for engineers here in Singapore. Okay, so for IES, we actually extended into IES INCA. IES INCA's role is to help engineers who are trying to do technopreneurship and to link with mentors and investors so that they can build their business and become a sustainable venture. Okay, and so our mission is really to help the engineering companies to do engineering translation, help them to accelerate their products to market, and also be able to meet their milestones and their growth potential. With this, we hope that we can build a very vibrant engineering venture community that can really transform life through innovation and technology. Okay, so since we started in 2019, we have supported 23 incubatees, out of which 12 are still very active with us. We have 80 plus mentors and now 130 plus investors that are looking to match with some of these incubatees for investment. And we have about 800 plus in our community that's attended our past events, and we continue to educate and to share opportunities with all of you. So from the time we started, we had a lot of offline events, and then when pandemic came, we were doing a lot of online events. We still continue to share, getting our technopreneurs to share their journey, getting the incubatees to share their products and services. So now moving forward, we continue to do both online and offline events to continue to grow the community. So what exactly does IES INCA do? We actually provide support to IES members, engineers who are running their companies in the scale-up stage, corporate SME spin-offs, IHL spin-offs. We provide the engineering translation support, mentorship, and business support training so that we can link them to investors, business network, and also customer markets. Yeah. On top of that, we also look to corporate SME for problem statements, industry problem statements, and also innovation opportunities so that our engineers can look at these opportunities and build new technology companies to go after this business needs. Okay, so who can we help? Those companies that have done their customer discovery, customer validation process and ready to scale out their ventures. We can guide them in the business planning and structuring and so fundraising, as well as be supported by our mentor and IES network. Companies that have completed incubation, they have an executable business plan and necessary funding to grow the company. Yeah. Okay. So 4 areas that we focus on as an incubator: build environment infrastructure technology, where companies are in the building related materials, processes, facilities management. Companies in the IoT, industrial purpose and smart city space, robotics automation, clean tech sustainability. These are the companies that we are supporting in the scale-up incubation acceleration. And companies that have an MVP ready to scale up, the minimum size of revenue has to be potential of 1 million and above, and the key team member is an IES member, can join us for incubation. Fellow engineers here who are not IES members, you are always welcome to join IES as a member. Okay. Some of our partners that we are working with include Enterprise Singapore, NUS, NTU, various angel investors, and also venture capitalists, as well as IPI and A-Star. Yep. And we also work closely with Institute of Singapore Chartered Accountants, which is a national body for accountants and CFOs. Jointly, we form an investor network that has 12.2 million to invest into tech companies. Yep. Okay. So we also have outreach actually to engineering technology SMEs. We know many of them are struggling to grow, and that's where we have brought together a panel of consultants who can help them to do a business review and also to innovate by doing new tech commercialization, spin-off, and also entrepreneurship. So SME companies who are keen to engage with us, feel free to click on the link later and sign up with us. Let me just show you our page on this, so you can take a look at that as well. Yeah. Okay, so we have this page on the Dare to Transform, and we have listed our panel of consultants who are mostly our mentors and trainers as well. Yeah, and they are willing to put up, 1 to 2 hours of their time to sit down with the leaders of the companies to help you to think of new ways you can grow your company and business. Yeah. So welcome also to Karen, who I just added her to our panel of consultants, very willing to help companies. Yeah. Okay. So back to my presentation. Yeah. So just for awareness of the tech companies here, Enterprise Singapore has built this Startup SG network where you can connect with startup investors and also incubators like us. And you can get listed so that you can be discovered in the network and also connect to even mentors as well in this network. So there's lots of very good features here which Enterprise Singapore has put up so that the community in the ecosystem can get closer and also collaborate. Yeah. Okay, so we are also running various courses to help our engineers to scale up in their business knowledge. So feel free to sign on to the courses. Later I will mention about them. Okay, so that's my contact, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or just chat with me later on about your business needs or if you have interest for incubation. Okay, so that's all I have to share for now. Now I'd like to invite our first speaker, which is Mr. Leong Siu Wai, to share about his topic, how to retain and reward the talent in the tech ventures. Okay, let me bring up his slides. Okay. Okay, over to you, Siu Wai.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Siu Wai. A brief introduction on myself. Basically, an engineer, a business consultant, a startup mentor, and entrepreneur. Well, my first degree is actually in mechanical engineering, and I spent about 13 years in an MNC. Started as a service engineer. By the time I left, I started a new operation for the company. As a business consultant, I've been doing it for the last 7 years, and I'm working a lot with the SMEs, mainly in the engineering side. As a startup mentor, I'm very active with the NUS, NTU, and IES, working with them on mentoring of new teams. And as a norm, probably I mentor about 5 to 7 teams a year. And some of them are still with me after they have graduated in their courses. And as an entrepreneur, I started some business, 5 of them, 2 still going strong. One is in 14th year, another one is in the 7th year. So my area of specialty is actually in the engineering side, mainly in the construction and the process industry. And I work a lot with the SMEs and the startups. So that's just me. Yeah. So next, I will talk about, next slide, please. Yeah. So today I'm going to talk about reward and retaining talents in the tech ventures. So before I go into the reward and the retaining side, I just want to share a little bit about what I see as tech ventures. Tech ventures are people coming together, solving critical problems. Problems that's usually technical, sometimes are not, but critical problems indeed. And that problems would have to be more or less translated to where there's a sizable customer market, simply because if they were to scale and if to get funding, it has to meet that kind of requirement. And the next is actually these tech ventures usually involve technology innovations. And coming along with these technology innovations, you have patents, know-how, IPs, and stuff like that. And they're looking at sustaining and having a scalable kind of business. And to help them grow, they will look for funding, as well as growth in the company and then transformation. Why I'm bringing it up, these tech ventures and what they do is because these are the critical parts that actually helps to reward and retain. So if you understand what they do and what they need to do, then you'll find that to reward and retain them will be a lot more easier. Next, I will talk about the rewards. Now, what you see on the left, all the employee benefits, salary compensations, share options, working environment, all these are taken. You need to have certain amount of entry level before you can actually attract any of these talents into that. I like to talk a little bit about job security. So it's quite a little bit of a different, because if we go into a venture, job security is the opposite of it. But I like to say something about it because I do have come across a few cases where the founders themselves were actually groomed from technology side. They were experts in their technology, but they dare not take the first step to jump out because they still wanted end of the month paycheck. So there are cases where people just walked out and they couldn't just cope with it, and they decide not to join those ventures. So yeah, job security to some people is important, but then it's really something which they probably have to relook if they want to go into any of these ventures. So I say it again, rewards and benefits is to be taken. It has to be there. It has to be so-called fair before you attract any talents. Right, next, we will talk about retaining. Now, retaining is actually more of an art than a science. Then you say that with this kind of salary scale, with this kind of benefits, you should be able to retain talent. But from my experience looking at many different companies, startups, and things like that, I felt that some of these soft skills and soft requirements are there. First, core values and culture. I've come across a company whereby the core values are excellent. The core value was respect. And I think having respect and working in that kind of environment itself actually helps to retain and hold those talents. And that I've seen it for myself. Culture, well, I talk about negative culture. I've come across a company whereby the founders and the people working over there just fly by night, touch and go. So that makes the people working there very insecure about what they're going to do and when meeting the customer. I think that's an example of what culture means in any company. I think the other thing that's very, very important is listen. Listen. As I've explained early on in first slide, whereby we talk about tech ventures, there's so many things that they are supposed to do. And the different people have different kinds of requirement. So listening is very important throughout the whole entire time, apart from culture and core values. We used to have such thing called exit interview. That's when somebody wanted to leave and start to tell you what happens and that kind of thing. So you probably won't get any kind of truth out of that. So the other way of doing it is probably in between. These guys been here for 3 months, been here for a year, have a coffee break and says that, hey, you've been here for a year. What do you like most about here? So that kind of listening at all time, that actually links to your compensation and benefits and the needs that the people want. Listening is very important. Next, I like to bring up the MAP. MAP is a short form for mastery, autonomy, and purpose. In any case, whether you're a driver, whether anybody in an organization, these are very important things to them. First, they want to demonstrate a mastery of their skill. Come in, they want to do it best. They want to find that they are the one who can do this job best. Mastery. Autonomy, having done that well, he wants to have the flexibility to run it and do the things that with a little bit of empowerment and able to do it on their own. And finally, the purpose of why they're doing it. So through my engagement with the people working with tech ventures in any company, this mastery, autonomy, and purpose seems to be very high up in their requirement in order to keep and retain them. And the next thing is recognition, a recognition of the work, and also a space to grow and learn. And this points back to my earlier slide at the very beginning, that there's so much to do in a tech venture. So they must be given that space to learn. And finally is the coaching and mentoring that it has to be provided in the organization. Now, what's coaching and mentoring? Next, please. Coaching and mentoring. Now, first and foremost, you must understand that talents have different personality and different career needs. I was doing a talent management program for one of the companies, and the first thing I did was actually to bring them to the side and actually ask them, talk to them, and understand from them, each of them, what do they have, what's in the career, and what's their personal needs. I have one case of an extremely talented engineer, and his personal needs was actually to get a PR in Singapore. That's it. If that company gets him a PR, he will stay at the company for whatever time it takes. Simply as that. He has worked in the Middle East, has worked in many places, but the point is that he has children over here, but the so-called the primary school fees is going to be $1,000 and above, because he can't go to local schools. He has to go into international schools. He can't buy a house. He got to rent it. So when I start talking to him, I understand his personal needs. That makes it a lot easier. It's not just about his professional career needs, many other needs. So that's one area that I'd like to share. Now, the next thing, a coach and mentoring is required actually in the transformation. There's a transformation between the entrepreneur to leader. When they first started out the business, the tech venture itself, you're an entrepreneur. You actually chong everywhere to look for businesses. But the moment you start having paying customer and you start having an office, you need to transform from an entrepreneur to a leader. And I think the coach and the mentors comes in very, very importantly at this stage. And a company, like a child, will grow. At different stage of the growth, you will definitely need mentors, coaches at different stages with different capabilities. It doesn't mean to say that you have one coach and one mentor throughout the entire life of the company. No, you'll be different. All right. And coaching and mentoring is important because you bring the best out of each of the talent. Now, I try to recall why my first job I stayed 13 years, and my second job I stayed 13 years as well. It's not so much about the salary and benefit, but actually because I had a very good coach. And the first job that I started as a service engineer and then ended up started a business for the company. The chairman and the sales director were my coach and mentor all the way up to succeed. So I thought that's very important. Another reason why coach and mentoring is important, because in the organization, as a leader itself, you don't really manage too much of the products or anything else, but actually you're shifting from mentoring, you're shifting from managing energy, manage the energy of a team. So that's why this sort of skills, you will only pick it up if you have a good mentor or a good coach in the organization. And finally, the coach and the mentoring that you have, you actually provide a very safe place for them to learn. And there are plenty to learn. And the reason why they stay is because there's continuous learning, and they find that their value and satisfaction in the company actually grow with them. So yeah, basically that's the end of what I want to share with you today. And I'll be happy to take in any questions you have later on. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, So now I will invite uh, yeah, Miss Karen Le to share about her experience as a senior HR practitioner in working in various companies. Yeah, so also give you a holistic view of how HR practices can be implemented. So over to you, Karen.
Sorry. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, UI. Sorry, I forgot to unmute. I was like, okay. Just a quick intro of myself. I've been in HR more than 25 years in the very industry. Okay. My career, like UI, is in an MNC. And to be honest, when I stopped work to be with my family in 2008 and I decided to come back, I asked my question, what do I really want to do? And it occurs to me that maybe I would like to sort of pay it forward a little bit to help the local organization build out the HR capabilities. So since then, I've been a Skills Future mentor in Spring. Then was Spring then. Okay, now it's Enterprise Singapore. Okay, I also sit as part of the Enterprise Singapore panel of experts in HR to help companies who are scaling up, and also a SP in our HRP. Okay, so to now, I've been helping organizations not just build out HR capabilities, local companies, but also the leadership capabilities. Okay, a little bit, aligned to what Sue was just saying, the mentoring and coaching part, as well as building organization capabilities. Okay, so I thought it'd be good, based on my experience working with local organizations since 2015, I thought it'd be good for me to share a little bit. Hey, how come? Sorry, the slides are not moving. Okay. To talk a little bit about holistic HR practices. Okay. My observation for company is sometimes when they talk about HR, they tend to look at it very operational or very administrative. And I thought it'd be good for me to share a quick overview, when you talk about holistic HR practices, okay, what we are looking at. Okay. Okay. I'll talk about employer branding later. Okay. Before I go into the holistic HR practices, wanted to share what is the trends in the human capital space. As we know, right, because of COVID, okay, a lot of organization has pivoted to virtual, and now it's hybrid, virtual as well as in person. Okay, so increasingly, I was asked a question about whether people are willing to come back to work or not. It's a mix, to be honest. Yeah, so virtual team in a way will remained. Okay. And with the onset of technology, right, certain skills are needed. Okay. We may think that, okay, in a tech space or tech venture, these are the skills needed. But to be honest, because of technology, even in HR, even in finance, even in non-technology roles, you will need to have all those fundamental of skills. And as we know, because of the changing landscape and technology, job roles are changing. Okay, things are being more automated more. So job roles are being redefined, redesigned to cater for the automation. Okay. On the softer side, increasingly employees are looking at the employee experience equation, where employees are asking what's in it for me and what is the value proposition for me as an employee. And importantly, like what Siwai briefly mentioned about the culture. Culture is essentially very important to drive the values and the behaviors, okay, in the organization. So this is the trends. I thought I'd just give a quick overview. Okay, I want to share a little bit about what the new workforce want in a job. Okay, as we know, okay, in these days we are having not just workforce as being an organization, but new workforce from the millennials as well as Gen Z. Millennials, as you know, can see the years. 1983, 94, Gen Z will be this. Those are coming out, graduating from either polys or ITs or grads. There's been research done, as you can see. I've collated. Job purpose is very important. What are they doing that's contributed to business? Not only that, they also want to belong in an organization where there's an impact on community and society. Not just of the CSR, but what are they doing that they, either the products or the services provide, is also having an impact on the community. Okay. And they are also looking at career growth and development. Okay, as you can see, they're not just doing for the job, they also want to see how they can actually learn further, grow further. And like what Siwa was saying, that increasingly as leaders, right, you are not, the new generation are not looking at just leaders as in boss. They call their boss, or the boss just say this, I'll do. They are looking at leaders and managers as a coach that can actually support them and guide them to the journey, to the career journey, okay, career growth, career contribution, or contribution in the organization. And on the larger picture, they are also looking at a conducive work environment where they will love to see whatever values the company talked about, people are embracing it and walking the values. For instance, if it's teamwork, they also want to see that the leaders believe in teamwork and also demonstrate that particular behaviors of working in a team being open, right? And that's one. And two is also, they also want to work in an environment where they encourage creativity and ideas. Gone are those days, my time, where I go in and work, the boss say this, I just do. Now they are looking at, hey, I have opportunity to contribute, even come up with out of the box ideas and room for me to autonomy, like what Siwa was just saying, and come up with certain creative way of looking at things that may add value to the organization. Okay. And very importantly, teamwork. Okay. I know because of on-site technology, we tend to be, very technology focused, but increasingly the engagement level between, especially for the millennials and Gen Z, or even the generations before, are looking at the spirit of teamwork that's important. Okay. And of course, we're talking about work-life balance. This is actually quite commonly surfaced, when I work in a local organization. The new generation would just say, I want a work-life balance. I know I had to get the work, but I also want to have a balance. And I also want to enjoy my work as well. Okay, so the enjoyment of work actually goes back to the purpose, opportunity to learn and grow, supportive bosses, good environment, okay, they have team spirit, and the values that are embraced as well. Okay, so with this, I thought, okay, I was just going to go quickly. What is holistic HR practice? Okay, this is just a quick visual. Okay, let's look at the inner circle first. Okay, our holistic human capital practices. Okay, I'll talk a little bit more the detail. So we are looking at, fundamentally, it'd be good to have a job level and scope being defined, competitive salary, okay, which as you talked about just now, objectives and goals, career pathway, okay, because people are looking to learn and grow. And to learn and grow, they also want to have a development roadmap, right? And if you look at it, encompassing all this, the environment, which is the values and the culture, are equally important. Okay, my outer circle has talent management and succession planning. That will be the next level, when fundamentally these are all in place and well implemented, including the environment from a culture and value perspective. Okay, let me go into a bit more details. Okay, let's go in a little bit more specific. Job level and scope. Okay, increasingly people will know, what is my level of responsibility? Like I mentioned, how is it contribute to the business, so that I'm clear. Okay, from the employee and perspective. Okay, but from the manager perspective, it's also good that we have very clear definition of what's the job level and scope, so that we can hire the right talent. Okay, when they say hire the right talent, we tend to say hire the people with the right skills and competencies. Yes and no. Sometimes when you hire the right talent, you may want to focus more on the mindsets, thinking, openness, willingness to learn. Okay, because every organization is different. You might want to hire those could be more important than the direct skill sets, the technical skill set. Yes, the technical skill sets is important, but the mindsets and the openness to learn and adapt are equally important. Okay, we talk about the fair, equitable compensation. Okay, in these days, because the economy has opened up, and also we know about the inflation, people are looking at more as competitive salaries. Okay. On the larger picture also, when they look at the benefits, right, we often think of benefits of the leave, for example, leave and medical, for example, insurance, but they're looking beyond that. For example, my overall well-being. Do I get attention if I have issues that I can raise to my manager, to the HR? Okay, and then health, and also what is the level of engagement? I know we have work from home, but what is the level of engagement? Tell me what's going on in your organization. Do we have town hall meeting? Do we have department meetings? Okay, so I know how I can be engaged. Okay, these are not really tangible benefits per se, like what we say the leave, but these are what they call the benefits that's intangible that actually engage employees indirectly. And of course, support for development as well. Not just in-house, but even budget for me to want to grow. When I want to grow, I get support to learn different skills. Okay, or to engage, to be mentored, what you were saying, with senior people in the organization. Okay. Okay, then we'll talk about objective and goal. Okay, very commonly in HR, we always talk about performance appraisal, performance management system. Okay. I didn't really want to use that word because I thought it'd be good to say that if you have objective and goals, right, you will provide clarity of my focus in my role. And in a way, you'll motivate me to perform and attain the goals. And ultimately, of course, if I can contribute, right, there will always be, what they call the tangible rewards. It could be a promo, it could be increment, of course, bonus, and possible career growth. Okay. And when I wanted to also go back on the career pathway and development. Earlier on, I talked about millennials looking at job growth, right? It's very important to create a career pathway and development roadmap. Whenever, I don't know, but it's quite common for people to think when we talk about development, right? Growth or career growth, we always look at career growth as a vertical to be leaders. Increasingly, I see a trend, okay, in the tech industries and in the engineering industries that some people I don't want to be a leader. They just want to be a technical specialist. I'll give an example. I work with a tech company. Okay, they need data analyst. Okay, but they also recognize that some data analysts just want to grow to be a specialist in the data analyst field. So we actually created a growth for them to be a data analyst, data specialist, to be a data scientist, where they are what they call a mastery on that even the leaders go to them. Yeah. So your career pathway now no longer just vertical. Okay, I will grow to be, for example, head of departments, directors, and so on. It also can be a technical pathway for them to be an expert, a master in that particular field. Okay. And when you have a career pathway in this manner, either the vertical or the technical growth, okay, you could have engaged and motivate employees, because there are always employees who wants to be a leader. There are also employees who want to be technical specialists, which I do see a lot in the tech field, to be honest. Okay. So it gives an opportunity to grow either way, okay, and of course to learn new skills, right, so that they can contribute to the business. Okay. Okay, and okay, so I talk a little bit about the cultures. Okay, I mentioned earlier on that organization is important. Organization to define what is the values of the company, so that you can drive a culture and behavior that provides a very conducive environment. Okay, not just for the employees, but from a top-down angle. Because very often, like I mentioned, people look at leaders, right, as a role model, walking the values, okay, driving, creating a work conducive environment for people to work conducively, embracing the values. So if you can have this together, you define the values, the culture with the behavior setup, okay, and they have the leaders who are the role models of value. employees will be more engaged. Okay, because it becomes what they call the unique culture proposition. Okay, let me share with you. I have worked with a company where they are medical device distributor. Okay, the CEO who started it 15, 16 years ago. Okay, he believes very strongly in growing his team. So he works the values by giving every time there's an opportunity, he will give the existing staff an opportunity for them to grow into it. They may not have the right skill sets, but he was willing to give them a chance and guide them. That's where the mentoring and coaching comes in. Guide them, mentor them, and help them to grow. Okay, because he believed in the role, the mentoring and coaching, and also the values of growing these people, let them grow in the organization. And not only that, he promotes openness. Anybody can just walk to his office and share ideas, propositions, or even provide feedback or something they're not happy about. And he was willing to listen. So back to the point about I talk about, right, the listening. Okay. So any values or any culture you want to embrace as a leader in the organization or as a HOD, you got to walk this, drive and walk, be the role model, okay, for that particular values. Okay. Okay. So what I've talked about is just from a fundamental, what I call functional, fundamental, okay, earlier on. Okay, the next step, okay, when you have the fundamental all set up, this is where you look at talent management. The pool of talent with potential to grow and how they can contribute so that you can then identify how you can actually have a accelerated career pathway for these people. Okay. I was short of using high potential because not all high potential employees can grow in the organization, to be honest with you. Okay, we tend to use the word high potential quite a lot. I would like to say that identify, people who has the right skill sets. Earlier on, I talk about mindsets as well. Willingness to be open, to learn and grow, okay, and wants to contribute with the right values, technically as well as a values proposition. Okay, so that you can let them grow, not just vertically, but also, become, horizontal, not horizontally, but, on the technical skill track. Okay. And of course, if you're looking at a bigger picture of having a talent pool to succeed, right? The managers and the HOD, this is where you have to look at succession planning. Okay. But this, to me, this will come later when all your fundamentals of what I've here, the inner circles are set up. And of course, the culture and the values. Okay. Okay. So this is just a quick overview, but I wanted to talk about employer branding, right? Okay. So what is employer branding? I'll talk a little bit about. Okay, employer branding, as you can see, right, is describe an employer's reputation as a place to work and their employee value proposition. As we know, right, the younger generation, when you talk about tech company, the first thing they think of is, I don't know, maybe Amazon, Google. Yeah. So what's in it that Google and Amazon, for instance, has such a strong employer branding? Okay, it's basically the promise to employees in exchange for the experience, talent, and skills. Promise as in what? To actually let them grow, opportunity for them to learn and grow, maybe even to go overseas assignments, for instance. Okay, and very good culture and also very supportive environment to be mentor and coach so that they can grow. Right. So employer branding is important because there's been research done, which I collated here, that it actually reduced 28%, of turnover. Okay, in actually also reduce cost per hire reduction because you have less turnover, right? As you know, when you have turnover, you have new hires. There's always what we call opportunity cost of the 2, 3, 4 months for a person to basically rise up to the assimilate culturally as well as the work, attain the right skills to do the work and the know-how. Okay. And you also, with the right employer branding, you actually can attract more qualified Okay, because you will have bigger pool of people who will apply because they're attracted and they can see how you can help them to grow. Okay. And because of this, you actually, when you know, your time to hire will be faster. Typically, it takes a good 2 months plus, you know, waiting for the person to serve notice, 2 or 3 months for the person to come on board. But if you have the right, you know, employer branding, okay, you'll probably be able to attract people who not necessarily working, but there are people who are fresh graduates or even career transitional who are actually being retrenched and willing to come on board and join you. Okay. Okay, I wanted to just go a little bit about, okay, sometimes when we hear the word branding, we tend to look at, oh, how we brand ourselves, you know, outwardly in your external. But I often tell organization branding is both ways. Your practices, what you have, okay, then with what you have, you can then brand so that when you attract and people come in, they actually say, hey, you know, I do enjoy working here, and they do really fulfill what they say, that they're going to train me from the beginning, they're going to give me opportunity to learn, and they're going to mentor and coach me. So what I'm saying here is, when we talk about branding, if you fundamentally have all this in place, it's well set up, implemented. Okay, it's actually your internal structures that are strong that is actually contributed to your brand. Because when orders are in place, right, you will then be able to publish on the website what you can offer. Okay, you can participate in TAFEC. Okay, TAFEC is Tripartite Alliance for Fair Employment Practices, part of MOM. Okay, as you can be an employer award, we have very good practices. You can publish on your social media, LinkedIn, for instance, or even other portal. Okay, you can participate in career fair, okay, with Institute of Higher Learning to attract fresh graduates or interns, fresh graduates, and to have them come on board. Right. So as you can see, it goes hand in hand. Your internal practices has been well set up and implemented and embraced by everybody, okay, leaders as well as your managers, your supervisors, and so on, and your employees. Then you can go out and create a branding for yourself. Okay. I have some examples, but I don't have here. I've seen some very good employer branding, and they do really walk their talk, because employees, as you know, these days can go to Glassdoor, right, and share their inputs about how they feel in the organization. Okay. And sometimes you do see negative feedback, and sometimes you do hear positive feedback as well. Yeah. So essentially, when you have holistic HR practices like the circle I'm saying, all the fundament in place, okay, you really implement it well, you write the top, okay, you can rest assured that comes to the marketing, you know, not just with all the institution, social media, but even your employee can also go Glassdoor and say good things about the organization. That will help. I've seen a lot of Glassdoors that people posted very good things, and you actually attract people to apply because they say, so sometimes we ask them, where did you hear of us? They say, oh, I read the Glassdoor, very good feedback, you know? Yeah. And I want to side point a little bit. When you work with Institute of Higher Learning, for example, in the polytechnics, and you hire in uni and you hire interns, right? When the interns have a good experience, that you really put together a very good internship or a management training program, when they go back to the institution, the uni or the poly, they share very good feedback. And the institution actually start promoting for you as well. They will start coming to you, hey, I have people who wants to have internship and management training, you know, can I send them to you? Do you need people? I've seen that happening quite a bit. They will come to you. They will also invite you in a job fair, okay, to participate, to showcase your company. You know, what are the employee value proposition you have. They also invite previous interns and management trainee graduates who have joined as management trainee to come and share as well. So that actually increases your employer branding. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I know I only given 15 minutes, so I speed up. I know Andy's looking at me. Okay, yeah. So that's all I have to share. It's quite a quick overview on, the various HR practices. Mainly what people are young workforce is looking for these days. What are the practices you need to have aligned to what they're looking for, and also then from this you can actually use it for branding to attract, not only attract, also retain people, and also people going to LinkedIn, Glassdoor to share good things about you, about the organization. Okay, so with that, yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop share. Okay, we're going to have the Q&A. Right, Andy, back to you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Karen, for that sharing. I think I learned a lot looking at your really holistic view of how HR practitioners look at the organization and plan for the good use of talent, succession planning, rewarding the staff, and also managing the branding so you can keep your hiring costs low and
That's
attract the
right.
right talent.
That's right. Yeah.
I think that's a
Thank
very
you.
interesting view. No wonder the big companies are always ahead because they have that all
Yes.
in place, and then they're always giving the SMEs a run for their money. Okay. So yeah, before we go to Q&A, I'll just do a very quick sort of announcement for our upcoming courses and programs, so that you are aware. Yeah. So yeah, CY will be running this one-day course to help tech venture leaders, engineering leaders to implement and be aware of effective strategies that can help retain and develop talents in your organization. Yeah, so this is a one-day training that we have at IES Academy, and to help more engineers and engineering companies get there on that. Yeah. Besides that, this will be on 11 October. Yeah, in IES Academy. Besides that, CY is also strong in this technical selling. So on the 6th September, we actually have this program to help engineering industry, sales engineers, business leaders to develop a better understanding of the sales processes so that they can grow their company revenue better and understanding sales cycles in B2B projects, things like that. So CY will be delivering this one-day course as well. Lastly, we have another mentor, Mr. Jeremy Pei, who is going to share about critical thinking for engineers. As we all know, thinking is very important skill set in the knowledge-based economy. So how can you think better? How can you improve your thinking processes? Jeremy is very experienced in delivering this critical thinking courses. So this one is targeted specifically for engineering management, engineering leaders, engineers, and also technicians to gain competency in these areas. Okay, so do sign up if you want to upgrade your skills. And as I would say, to improve ourselves further so that we can be more effective as professionals. Okay, now we are open for panel of Q&A. So I welcome anybody who has any questions on what's been shared this afternoon. Yeah, feel free to turn on your video and just tell us more about yourself and your question. Yeah. Okay, we're all here to learn together. So yeah, let's try to just share, whichever challenges you might face in your organization for HR. Yeah. Maybe okay, while we wait for questions, you can feel free to turn on the video or type in the chat box. Okay. Maybe I just ask Karen. Karen, what is Glassdoor? I think a lot of people do not know what Glassdoor is.
It's actually a social media platform where it's hosted overseas, but people go in to share ask questions, maybe sometimes about salaries, about companies, or also to find out what's the reputation of the company, right? Yeah. So if you type Google Glassdoor, you will see people will share comments sometimes. Oh, I work in this company. I tell you, the boss worked very long. We work very long hours, very stressed. Or you can see, hey, this company's got good culture. They really embrace. They're very open. Things like this. Yeah. So it's a social media platform where it's quite commonly people post their views on that Glassdoor channel. Right. Sometimes they also go in there to find out whether the remuneration is competitive. Okay. They set up some account and they just type in and see whether there's a comparison. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. I think it's really interesting to.
Yeah, you can Google. Yeah, just type Glassdoor. You will find. Yes, it's very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. So quite common. I find these days, people will go to Glassdoor and see. Even companies will go Glassdoor and say, "Aya, this Resini, this person who has left, unfortunately, didn't say very good things about us." You know, yeah. So it affects their reputation. You see. Yeah. So that's why do be mindful when, like I say, when you have, I know at the end of the day, we're running every organization is run a business, right? And the bottom line is important revenue. But you got to remember employee experience, engagement, okay, are equally important because you also want people, to have a good experience. Yes, sometimes we know these days employees don't stay very long. Sometimes 2 years, 3 years they go. However, during the 2, 3 years, I like to think we will also create a good experience for them. Okay, for whatever reason they decide to leave, even a good experience, they come away thinking they have a good experience. They say good things. You never know. Okay, just to share with you, they may come back. Okay, let me share with you. I do have a client that hires people, fresh graduates, like less than a year experience. Sometimes they move on 2 years later. Okay, but he was prepared. He was just saying it's okay because I think they want to explore different opportunities. And interestingly, 2 years later, they come back and say, "Hey, I do appreciate this organization. I've gone out to expose, and I realize I think the environment is still more appreciative, better here. I'm coming back. I want to come back." Yeah. So what I'm just saying is what goes around comes around. Yeah. But may not be immediate. You may say, "Yeah, I spent so much time training you, you leave." Okay. However, you'd be surprised if you can uphold the right culture, the right mentor, the supportive environment. You'd be surprised they come back. Okay. And I'm talking about local organizations here. Okay. I have not seen that for MNC, to be honest. I've seen that for local organizations. So it's a little bit of positive point I want to highlight to you all. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Karen, for that input. Yeah. Anybody has any questions? Feel free to share. Yeah. Yeah, in my personal experience in my organization in the past was MNC, we actually had very good um, HR structures and also work scope planning, performance rewards, things like that. But even then, people still leave. Part of the reason is because sometimes they in an organization where they cannot realize their full potential, and I call it graduate from the organization, because after they leave, right, they all do very well outside the organization to the loss of the organization. Because I was there for 13 years and I end up training a lot of these guys from their junior fresh grad level to experienced level, and then we lose them. Sometimes the SMEs may be a good thing because they can help the SMEs to grow as well. But yeah, that's been my experience. Maybe CY like to share some experience from his cases that he has helped. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the the experience in working in a company is very important. We do have some perception that if somebody comes from that particular company and been there for a while, he has a reputation of being able to perform, because that's exactly what the environment has helped him do. So sometimes when like what Andy says, some people leave because they have other aspirations or they are in a different season of their life. But I think the important part is that when they leave and they feel happy that they were actually learning from this organization for a while before they left. I think that's important. And just last Friday, I had a meet up with my first batch of people who joined the same NMSCs that I had. That we were together, and we have been together for 30 over years. That was some time back. And I think when we start to share among us, some has left, some is on their own business, some is joining a competitor. But I think in this sharing itself, then you actually can find out that some of them do appreciate very much the kind of coaching environment and values in the company they were there before. And these are some of those things that still stick into the mind. So in that sense, I think for a company to actually work hard on these core values and culture is very important. But sometimes, even you try working hard on it, but sometimes this comes in very natural. Every company have its own DNA. All right, no matter what you do, every company has a DNA. You drive to any Caltex petrol station, when you leave it and come back, you always want to go back to one or two of them because there's a DNA there. So the organization, the person who runs the petrol station actually gives you a kind of attachment. And you see the people are quite happy in certain of those petrol kiosks if you look at it. So it's actually very much important that that culture and the kind of core values in the company itself, as well as anywhere else, is very important.
Thanks, UI, for that. Yep. So indeed, as leaders in engineering companies or in technology ventures, how you set the tone, how you communicate the company culture through the actions and also through the words help to drive the action of the staff as well. Yeah, very much. Yeah. Okay. Open to any questions from the floor. Stephen Chua, Clara, Don Trump, Elena. Anybody like to ask a question here? Yeah. Chu Yen. Yeah. Okay. Yao Ming, you like to ask a question?
Maybe Andy, Chow here. Maybe I can share some of my recent experiences hiring staff. The first thing we noticed is that Singapore at the moment is a employees market. So, and it will be in the perhaps in the coming 1 or 2 years. So that completely changed the way employers and managers behave and operate. Unfortunately, we still have a lot of old school managers, and I hear a lot of feedback from friends, relatives, even family members about how their bosses operate. In the past, you can get by if you are we have a lot of dictator bosses in the past, right? Many of us know we have worked under some of these dictator bosses, but today they are totally irrelevant. You know, if there's such a boss, your employees will leave very soon, because there are two elements that hold employees together. One is salary, the other is culture and relationships. Unfortunately, most managers only look at the salary portion and have forgotten the relationship portion. You need both to keep. I admit that a good working relationship is but one leg of that stool. Minimum, you need 2 legs to hold this stool together. 3 will be better. And SMEs, being SMEs, are even more vulnerable, and they are unable to pay as much as the MNCs. So the only thing they have is the relationship portion to hold them, to hold the employees with them. They have to accept the fact that the third leg will be, they won't work for you very long. You have to accept that fact. So your process have to be rearranged so that you can expect them to leave maybe 2 years, 3 years down the road. So your whole process must adapt to that rather than run into a crisis situation when they leave. So I was just talking to a friend who is running a small law firm, and she lost her office manager, and they were talking about salaries, you know, $100-200 extra for the previous managers. I don't know the previous managers, so I don't know how she performed, but she was struggling, and she's moving office because the landlord has terminated all the contract in the building. The building is being upgraded, and they're looking for new buildings. The rentals have gone up. The manager has left, and there's nobody. And she, being a law firm partner, now has to do the nitty-gritty work. So I don't know enough of a case, but that is one case where she may have to find a manager who replaces the old manager. The old manager appears to be somebody who is stuck in her ways. She's been there like 40 years, I was told. So she's stuck in her ways, where you just do the standard stuff. Anything new, she cannot cope, don't want to cope. So she resigned. And she left a couple of months, and the whole company is in topsy-turvy because nobody's doing the office management now. And lawyers are leaving. And those of you who are familiar with law firms, lawyers are getting increments of 1,000 to 1,500 a year. So, if you work 2-3 years, you are talking about 8-10K salary. That only now pose a problem to the law firms. It also poses a problem to the engineers, right? Because now the engineers are saying, why am I an engineer in the first place? I'm in the wrong business. I want to do something else. I can't be a lawyer now. It's too late, but I want to do something else. So these are things that will set all of us thinking, how do we manage differently now? To be honest, many Asians do not put too much thought into employee relationship. The big companies have more fat, so they can afford to be a bit more generous. But even those, from what I hear, I'm retired from my company of 42 years, but I also hear they are having problems themselves. So that's the nature of this beast now. So we all have to adapt and change. So this is a good platform where we can share experiences. Unfortunately, in this business, there is no one pill that you can swallow and solve all your problems. There are several pills. Some pills work better than other pills, like many other problems. So I think it's good to share. And so that is my 2 cents worth from what I hear recently. And on the subject of Glassdoor, now I'm into this trend as well. When I want to look for a new restaurant to eat, a new place to eat, I look at the review. In the old days, I asked around my friends who have eaten, but there are so many restaurants and it's too troublesome to ask friends. So now I look at the review. You go to Google and you find the restaurant and review. So like Glassdoor, if you get a couple of negative reviews, it really hits you bad. Some companies actually threaten legal action against certain people who complain, but that's a waste of effort, if you ask me. So I think, but a lot of restaurants don't know how to respond, and I've been to quite a few restaurants, and they have their hard time with their own version of Glassdoor, which is restaurant reviews, and people just throw remarks in there, and they are unable to offset their bad remarks with good remarks. So on average, their score drops and people stop going there. And all my children now pick restaurants on that basis, or pick cafes on that basis. That shows the importance of Glassdoor, which is the employee version of reviews, restaurant reviews.
Interesting way of looking at it. I think I'm not sure. Has there ever been a time where it's been an employees market ever? I don't know. Maybe historically Karen can share. But certainly that challenges us as business owners, business leaders to be much more aware of that. Human resource management is very important in our business. Maybe Karen comment, and you probably will wrap up soon as well.
Sure. Okay, there's always ups and downs. There's always occasions where sometimes it's an employees market. I mean, now we know it is an employees market. Okay, we know, we've seen I'm sure you read about McKinsey talking about Great Resignation, even in the US, worldwide, things like this. Okay, but I just want to bring back a point that I work in MNCs and I work with local organizations, and I like to say that local enterprises do have good strengths. Okay, can I just share my observation? I find that the directors and the CEOs and the senior management, they don't have this hierarchy that I'm there. Because they start the company, they look after the people, they're very family oriented. So that is the part I thought that is the strength. Okay, but on the other side, I always tell them that you do need to have certain structures and system, especially if you want to scale up, because then you'll be less clarity, and also equipping people with the right skills so they can grow and mentor and guide them, the culture bit. Okay, and I was just sharing earlier on with Andy that I've seen second generation that comes in. that will tell the parents, can you please stay at home? Let me run, let me run because I want to change the way things are run. Right. So I always tell local organizations, you do have strengths. All you need to do, if you really want to, if I may advise, if you can actually do what we call an employee engagement survey, if you want to get the feedback from the employees. They will tell you the happy things. They also tell you things that you are not very good at. And I think I would take it positively that the good things will be what we call the employee value proposition. It could be the culture. Okay, it could be the openness. It could be less red tape, no hierarchy. But of course, the other thing they may just say, okay, maybe the remuneration not so attractive, or I overwork, for example, or there's no career growth. This is where you can take upon that and say, okay, that how can we improve? You can even facilitate a little bit of feedback session from them, ideas from the younger generation, which they do have a lot, how you can actually improve. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not saying that it's be all and end all. Yes, you do have. I also must admit that some organizations do have what called a multi-generation workforce, right? You have people in Zen, the baby boomers, right? And the X and the Y, which is very different. But I often tell them that you do have your strength. You have the depth of experience, okay? The younger generation also have their strength. They may not be experienced. They come in, don't know anything, but they have technological mindset and they can think out of the box. So you can actually do what I call a mentoring, where the senior mentor the junior in terms of experiences, problems to deal with, knowledge of the products. But at the same time, I always encourage what I call reverse mentoring. Encourage the more experienced people to embrace the younger generation, because they can see things out of the box. They can say, hey, you've been doing this. Why don't you use technology? Let me show you, and you can do it within 2 steps rather than 5 steps. Yeah. So in a way, if you can go, if as a leader, you can actually drive this, and showcase it. I've seen the more mature employees are a little bit more open. Okay, yeah. But of course, you got to go in and you need to explain to them how is it done, what is it important, how it's going to let them experience it. They will start seeing the benefit. Okay, so the mentoring, if I may add, is not just one way, the senior, but it's also reverse mentoring. I've seen the younger generation, they think out of the box and good ideas. They actually give ideas to the senior folks, that's the more mature employees, been a long time there, say, oh, good point, let's improve. They actually took on board very well. So it's because the leaders was asking, encouraging them to be working together. So the team spirit and the message and the values is important. Okay.
Thank you, Karen, for that. Yeah, so we'll wrap up. I think if at this moment it's an employees market, maybe it's time for the employers to step up, improve their management of the human resource, strengthen their company branding both internally and externally, and attract the best talent for their next lap of growth. So I'd like to leave you all with this thought, imagine if our country, every person is meaningfully using their talent and performing at the best of their abilities, and the Singapore companies with the good talent, put the good news is also growing and developing as a leader in the industry, and the whole country can grow and be able to perform at its highest level. So
yeah. Andy, maybe I just want to add something before we close the session. Just to follow through with what the Kopra was saying about the changing environment, I'd like to introduce to all of us here the technique of using action learning. If you were to Google action learning, if you have questions about it, just feel free to reach out to me. Action learning is actually a process whereby you take action, reflect on the outcome, and find a solution to do the next step. It's a fantastic way of solving problems that you won't know what's the outcome going to be like. It's an extremely strategic way of solving critical problems. So yeah, I hope I have a chance to speak to you about action learning again the next time round, because I actually did my MBA using action learning, and I've been practicing it in all my consultancy work. So well, maybe if time permits, next time we can talk about that. But Google it, all right, and you'll find out how it can be done.
Okay, thank you, CY, for your sharing today. Thank you, Karen, for your sharing. We'll end for today. The recording will be sent to you later, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions